Hi folks, it's RC62. A couple of weeks ago I met up with my friend Brian and he led me on a nice excursion up to Sugarloaf Mountain. Sugarloaf Mountain is on the west side of Lake Apopka in central Florida. Anyway, it was a nice trip. I videotaped it and I got about an hour and a half worth of footage on the GoPro. And as you know from my previous video on the review of that and the testing of that, the audio is horrible, so I don't really have any audio to go with it. So I'm kind of recording this after the fact. In fact, I've been sitting on that video for the last 2 weeks trying to figure out what to do with it. And I think I finally came up with an answer. I've seen a couple of video responses, actually more than a couple, to some questions posed by bikerboomer and by David Howell. And I thought, hey, this would be a good use of my footage here. I could play the footage in the background and try to answer these questions. And hopefully this will make for an interesting vlog. So for David Howell's questions, I believe he had 3. The first of which, do you use 2 fingers on your bike to brake, or do you use all 4 fingers? And the answer to that is, I have been in the habit of using essentially 3 fingers for my brake and or clutch, keeping my index finger wrapped around the handlebar or around the hand grip. And here in July I took the basic rider safety course, and that is one thing the coaches were on me left and right about, is every time they would see that I didn't take all 4 fingers and wrap them around the brake or the clutch on the training bike, they yelled at me about it. So I'm trying to break that habit. Question number 2, do you cover the brakes and or clutch while you're riding? So my DN01 is an automatic, so there's no clutch, so no, I don't cover the clutch. As far as the brake, it really depends. If I'm just cruising down the road and I'm not seeing any particular risk areas, I don't. I keep my hands wrapped around the grips, and that's where they stay. When I'm approaching intersections or areas where there's a lot of traffic, I will cover the brake. I don't trust my reflexes to be fast enough to respond without having them covered. And hopefully that can reduce my level of risk a little bit and keep me a little safer. Question number 3, do you put 1 foot down, both feet down? And if you put both feet down, which foot do you put down first? And if you only put 1 foot down, which foot do you put down? So in the basic rider course, they train you to put your left foot down first, then the right. And I try to do that. I'm trying to follow what the training was all about. To be honest, sometimes both feet go down at the same time. Sometimes I am able to stop nice and smooth, and I'll put that left foot down first and then take the right one off the brake and put it down. I almost always use both feet though. My Honda DN01 is about 600 pounds, and you get a little bit off balance and I could be laying on the ground real quick, so I do put both feet down. When I'm riding my little Ruckus, which is a little 49cc scooter, I can sometimes get away with just putting the left foot down and be pretty confident that I'm not going to dump it over because it's very lightweight. So hopefully that answered questions David had. Now for Biker Boomer's questions. I think he had a few additional questions. I think he had a total of 5. Ever got a speeding ticket? Not on my bike, but then again I've only had my DN01 since June, and I tend to ride kind of carefully, so no. My last speeding ticket in a car has been probably 10 years ago or so. I'm generally a fairly careful driver. Experience has taught me to be. I'm not a kid anymore, so I've learned some lessons the hard way, and I try to learn from my experience. Doesn't always work, but I try. Do you usually speed or speed while you're vlogging, or do you drive casually? What's your driving style? Again, as I just mentioned, I try to drive rather casually. I mean, I do occasionally drive over the posted speed limit, usually not more than about 5 miles an hour. Over in like a 45 zone, I might do 50. If I'm in the car and on the highway and the speed limit's 65, I might do 70, maybe 75 if it looks like it's safe to do so. But generally, I try to drive safely. I try to drive very casually. So what made you want to start vlogging? honestly, I've started watching a lot of the other vloggers, and I don't know, it just seems like a very nice community of folks, and seems like a good way to gain some more friends, even if they're just long distance online friends. You look like you got a lot of nice people out there that are doing these things, and I just find it interesting. So I want to be part of that. What made me want to share, or what made me want to start vlogging, as far as was to share my experiences, or to teach, or just to be cool? Well, just to share my experiences with family and friends, let them see what I'm up to. Hopefully I can put some interesting stuff up there once in a while. What bikes do I have, and what are the mileages? I have a Honda DN01. It's not fully broken yet. I still have less than 500 miles on it. I have a Honda Little Ruckus, which is my little scooter, and it's got 2,500 miles on it. I've had it for about 3 years. I'm not an inexperienced rider. Actually, I guess this will be the answer to question 5, which is a random question. So this is a little bit about myself, I guess. I'm not an inexperienced rider. I got my first motorbike when I was 10 years old, and it was a little Sears mini bike, a little 3.5 horsepower lawnmower engine on this little frame with 8-inch, or maybe it was 10-inch wheels. Had a lot of fun with that when I was a kid. As a 20-something-year-old, I had a Yamaha XT550 Enduro, and had a lot of fun on that bike up until the time that I had a couple of pretty bad crashes on that bike, and that pretty much ended my riding career. I still have a steel plate in my leg with 7 screws from the first bad accident on the bike. And about a year or so later, I wrecked it pretty bad again and messed up the same leg, which kind of convinced me that I was probably too stupid to ride. So I stopped. I sold the bike when I got married, and for the last 20 years, I have not been driving a motorcycle. I got the Little Ruckus about 3 years ago, and that really kind of sparked my interest again. And then here, I don't know, about 3 or 4 months ago, M13, on one of his videos, he came across a Honda DN01 and made some comments about it, and that really sparked my curiosity about that bike. And again, I had no intention of buying a full-size motorcycle again, or getting into motorcycle riding again. But as I started looking at the specs on the Honda DN01, the technology around it, it just, I don't know, it just captivated me. Honestly, I spent 3 weeks. I would go to bed at night thinking about getting the Honda DN01. I'd get up in the morning thinking to myself, Rob, you're an idiot. Don't do it. You'll get yourself killed. I'd go to bed again at night after having, looked on the internet again and reading more reviews and checking out the bike. I'd want it again. And I did this for almost 3 weeks before I finally went and bought the bike. And in fact, the first few times out on the bike, it was scaring the shit out of me so bad that I wouldn't go over 35 miles an hour. Again, it's not that I'm inexperienced, it's just that thought of wrecking on it, it really does frighten me. So in this video here, my buddy Brian agreed to lead me on this nice little trek up to Sugarloaf Mountain. And Brian is a very experienced rider. He's got a nice Yamaha V-Star. He's been riding all his life pretty much, and he was very considerate. He took it slow. He knew where the sharp turns were. He made sure he slowed down really well so that I could see that I needed to reduce my speed. And that helped me gain some confidence. In fact, the whole trek that we took, I think I put a little over 50 miles on the bike. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope you found some of my answers to the questions of Biker Boomer and David Howell interesting. Take care. Ride safe.